do I measure the success of my SEO efforts using key performance indicators?
Okay, so key performance indicators, KPI, are different for everybody, right? For a service-based company that's not selling anything on the web, it might be a phone call or a form fill, right? They fill out contact you or request a quote, that kind of thing. If it's, or again, a phone call. If it's a product-based company, right? It may be a sale. You want to sell something, right? You want to sell your product. If you are a nonprofit, maybe it's somebody donating, right? Having a donation going on. If you are a online newspaper or a magazine, your key KPIs might be having increased eyeballs, right? More traffic, more eyeballs on the site, maybe more time on site spent, maybe people looking at more pages of your site. Why? Because if people spend more time on your site and look at more pages of your site, you can charge more for your advertising, right? Because that's why you've got this content you're putting out there. You want to let people spend on it. So first thing you got to do is you got to determine, well, what are your key performance indicators? Are they going to be is it going to be clicking on something because you want someone to see a certain page of content, right? You want them to just view it. Is it going to be filling out that form? So figure out what your key performance indicators are. There's not going to be hundreds of them. Back in the early days of Google's UA3, the last version of analytics, you only had 20 conversionable items that you could track. 20. And even that was a lot. Most people would only use 5 or 10. So for a lot of my clients who are service-based industry clients, we typically have, like, I've got a power washer, right? And so there's a request to quote form, and we want that form filled out. There are a couple phone numbers, right? We want to track people that click to call. That'd be something good to track as well. We also, sometimes people fill out a contact form. They want to kind of get in touch, know some information. They don't want to quote, but they want to kind of find out, hey, do you work in this area, or do you do this kind of, cleaning or service? So a contact form fill is important for them. And so typically for us, what we're looking for in those is I like to have a key performance indicator of, did they land on the page, right? That's one. How many people landed on my contact us page? How many people landed on my request a quote page, right? Then I want to have, well, how many people submitted those things, right? And I want to see, hey, if 100 people landed on my request a quote form, but 2 filled out the form, what's wrong? Is the form too long? Is it not rendering well? Is there a problem of some sort on the form? Can they not be read? Can you not submit it? What's the deal? Same thing with the contact us form. Is it not working? Are people not doing anything? So to measure those things, you typically have to use a tool like analytics, some kind of analytics tool where you can track, you can track page visits. You can track a form getting filled out and somebody hitting a submit button, or even, the old way of doing that, rather than the submit button. Rather than tracking the submit button, is you could track after they hit the submit button, they get to a thank you page, right? Landing on that thank you page and making sure that thank you page is not indexable by the search engine. So it's only going to be able to get gotten to by hitting that submit button. Number of people that land on that page would be your conversions. And you can tie that back to the number of actual form fills that you've got. If it's products, right, it's a sale. Again, in analytics, you can have like e-commerce analytics to track what products you've sold, how many you've sold, and so on. So those are things you're going to track. So you're going to need to have some form of analytics to track those things. In other cases, if you are trying to track key performance indicators on, let's say, third-party sites, right? Like, let's say you want to track clicks to your website from a Facebook ad that you've put out, or even a Facebook post that you've put out. Or, for example, if you wanted to track, here, let me share my screen again. If I wanted to track, I'm going to put in my company name here. See that website link right here? That's my local listing, right? If I wanted to track people who click on that website click, or other clicks from other places, I would want to put what's called a UTM parameter. UTM parameters are ways of passing information to, and this is generally for analytics, Google Analytics tool, to pass the information to analytics and asking them to kind of track things separately. So it's hard to see, but when I hover over that, if you look down here in the corner, it'll be like a little green box pops up. And this little green box says UTM sources Google and UTM underscore medium equals GBP. So I am creating a source of the traffic and the medium of the traffic, right? This is GBP. When Google sends traffic my way, they have like if I click on this, without any link there, Google tracks as source of Google, medium is organic. If I had an ad at the top, I don't know if there's any ads at the bottom here now. If there was an ad at the top, Google automatically have a source of Google and a medium of CPC. I can track that. If I put a link onto Facebook, same thing, I can track that. Actually, let me show you guys something here. It's a little tool I use. And Sean, we might want to think about adding this to as a bonus item to the membership area. I think we should do that, actually. I think it's this one. Let me double check on that. Hold on a second. So what this does is for each campaign that we're posting, right, we have each thing we're posting, we have like a campaign. Okay, we have a creator name, and we have a naming key that we kind of put together here. So we use like the location, Tampa, New York, or Steve Scott SEO. The duration of the thing that we're doing, is it a 2-day workshop, a 3-day, a 5-day? Is it a 1-hour call, a 90-minute, 2-hour, 15 a 15-minute calendar item, a 30-minute or a 60-minute calendar item? These are kind of the durations of things. What the offering is it SEO training? Is it, is this a WordPress class, on-site boot camp? Is it consulting? Is it corporate training? Is it a logo reference or something? And then what's the publishing date, month, year, or the blog publish date? And then by combining those things, we can, so if I just look at that one, this is a Tampa 2-hour meetup in April 2018. I right away, I know what it is, right? So as I'm advertising or pushing information out about this item, let's just, for argument's sake, we'll say 2024, right? And we'll go May, right? Let's say for the next meetup in May 2024, I only have one meetup a month in May. So it's a 2-hour meetup in May. So I take that, that's sort of my naming, and I'm going to just put that into the campaign name, because now all the advertising I'm going to do for this socially is going to have that campaign attached to it. And then, well, where do I want people to land, right? Where do I want them to go? So maybe I want them to go, if I go to my calendar, right? And then I go, okay, well, let's see. Here is the May meetup. I even go to this page and register today. And I'll even send them to this right here, right? I'm going to grab this URL, get all the other junk I've got in there. I'm going to put that URL in here, right? And what happens is this tool automatically creates all of those UTM parameters, right? And it makes everything lowercase in case you have upper and lower, so everything's consistent. If the URL already had a question mark in it, it accounts for that, whether if it didn't. And what it does now is it creates an individual URL for each thing, right? So this one here, you see, I'll zoom in a little bit here. This is LinkedIn, right? And says, okay, well, here's the link. So you're going to go to that location. And then when people hit that page, the source is social, the medium is LinkedIn, the campaign is the name of the campaign we're pushing. In analytics, I could now see how many people came in as a social media source from LinkedIn for that campaign. I can track everything. I can see how many came from LinkedIn, how many came from Facebook. In email tags, we're putting out emails. I've got all different ones here for, is something in my newsletter? Is it in an e-blast? Is it a sign-up form? Is it the link? Is it an image, or is it a button? I've actually labeled these things out, and this automatically creates these UTM tracking codes. Now, these are obviously very long, right? And it's not going to work really well on Twitter to do something this long. So what we do on top of this is we actually combine this with using Bitly. And we have a custom Bitly for SSSEO.pro. And it's / meetup May, something like that. And we can make a nice short URL that'll work great, look great in in all the different platforms, Instagram and Twitter. It's not going to be too long, which this is nice, but it'll keep all this information. So when someone clicks on that link, it follows me back into my tracking. In fact, just again, let me show you something else here. I'm going to go to, we were actually, Sean and I, remember we were looking at this a little bit earlier today, which is on our site. Let me just show you something here. It's only the last 30 days. So we have begun doing a little bit of advertising on Reddit, just to kind of get some ideas on what's kind of engaging with people, what people like, what they don't like. We've got some things going on. And let me show you this. I'm going to pull this over in just a second. And in Reddit, we used a parameter. And that UTM said source is Reddit, medium are ads. And when I come into analytics and I go source medium, well, look, here's Reddit ads. It's just how analytics works. So if I were to look at, here's meetup.com referral, here's email newsletter, right? If I add another campaign for session campaign, I think I can do this one. And so here you see email newsletter campaigns April 2024. This is because of the URLs that we're using, those UTM parameters. They pass and they automatically create information in here. Here's like GBP. That is, again, another one of those parameters that we've passed it. So UTM parameters can help you track this. Conversions are trackable through analytics as well, through, like I said, setting up these conversions within analytics. And it could be other tools out there as well that you can use to track conversions. But the goal here is to see, are we doing better than we were doing last time, right? Search Console, another good way to look to see if you're doing better than you were last time. You can track to see, are we getting more clicks, more impressions? Do we have a better score this year versus last year? So there's lots of ways to track this, but it kind of depends upon, is it on your website? Is it actions taken on your website? Is it actions taken on other properties around the web, like Google Business Profiles, Facebook, and other social media? Is it clicks on links like playing a video button or clicking on a click to call? Those are all going to be trackable, but UTM parameters tend to be a really good way to do that. Tag Manager, another great way. If you know how to use Tag Manager, it's a little too technical for us to get into here, but Tag Manager is another way in which you can track people clicking on a link, people clicking on whatnot, on a button, on an image. You can track all that there. So a couple things you got to figure out is, what are your KPIs? What do you want to track, right? What tool are you using to track what's happening on your website? And how does that tool allow for conversions? And go with those two. So it's going to depend on your situation, but there's only going to be a certain number of conversions that are really going to make sense to push the needle forward. And then after that, it's just actions or people are taking, or events they're taking, like clicking on a button, clicking on a link, so on. Hopefully that helps. I know it's a lot again, but there's a lot, none of this stuff is typically cut and dry with stuff like this. We have whole sections on conversions in some of the analytics stuff that we used to do. We've got to put a new one up for GA4 for getting those things set up. That's probably, Sean, probably a good thing we should think about for a new session is setting up and tracking conversions in Google, or just in general, right? Setting up and tracking conversions to see what's going on, see what's happening. We were showing, I use a tool called Clarity from Microsoft, Clarity from Microsoft. It's their kind of analytics program. And it's really cool because it records what people are doing on your site. It shows where they're scrolling, where they're clicking, how long they're spending on the site. It shows you if they're filling out a form or not. It shows you if they're clicking on things that are not clickable, right? So you can say, well, maybe I should make that clickable, right? If they're clicking there, maybe I should make that clickable. It's super helpful. It shows you like heat maps, how far down people go on the page. Shows you a bunch of things like that. So different tools for like different tracking. And I use a bunch of, like I said, analytics, Clarity, Search Console, and then the UTM parameters, which feed into analytics to track different properties around the web for different campaigns that we're running and tracking how they're doing.